Dr. Dowdy stirred, the ache in his skull drumming like an insistent knock at a locked door. His stomach twisted in rebellion, the familiar nausea clawing its way up his throat. His body felt like lead, every movement sluggish, but when he forced his eyes open, the dim light of the apartment wasn't the alley or the street corner he had once called home. Freddy's voice cut through the fog, laced with familiar mischief. "Well, well, look who decided to rejoin the land of the living. Thought we lost you there for a minute." A groan escaped Dr. Dowdy's lips as he turned his head toward Freddy, the effort monumental. "If this is living, I want a refund," he muttered, voice hoarse. Freddy snorted. "Sorry, pal. No returns, no exchanges. You break it, you buy it." Want to see where Dr. Dowdy's journey takes him next? Click like and subscribe to help us continue telling stories like these, because some fights are just beginning. Latasha stirred from her chair in the corner, the exhaustion etched in the deep lines of her face. Her body ached from nights spent holding this fragile world together, but when she stepped toward Dr. Dowdy, her eyes held steady resolve.
"You need fluids. And I'm calling Dr. Henderson."
Dr. Dowdy swallowed against the dryness in his throat. "Oh good. More doctors. Just what I needed." Freddy grinned. "Relax, they're not coming to take your kidney, yet." Latasha shot Freddy a tired glare before her attention settled back on Dr. Dowdy.
"Dr. Henderson's arranging for you to see Dr. Judy Chen, substance abuse specialist."
Dr. Dowdy let out a weak chuckle. "Guess I finally made the big times." Freddy's smile dimmed for just a second, the joke wearing thin beneath his concern. "Yeah, well, don't get too famous. We still need you around here." The room fell into silence for a beat, the weight of everything pressing down between them, sobriety, second chances, the fight ahead. Latasha sighed, bracing herself for what came next. She exhaled slowly, then reached for her phone.
"Billy,"
she said, voice steady despite the exhaustion.
"I need you to come over."
The knock came. Firm, deliberate. Latasha pulled the door open, and Billy stepped inside, his sharp gaze sweeping the room, a slow, silent assessment. Dr. Dowdy, pale and drenched in sweat. Freddy, worn but watching. Latasha, barely upright. He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "You weren't kidding." Latasha didn't waste time.
"I need food. Something light. Crackers, broth, maybe some Alka-Seltzer."
Billy arched his brow.
"You nursing him or preparing for the end of days?"
Latasha's tired eyes locked onto his. She exhaled sharply, the weight of everything pressing into her words.
"Billy, you started this when you took Dr. Dowdy to that restaurant. You asked him to be your doctor. You knew he was homeless, you got him this apartment, and you opened the clinic. Now, you need to get him food that will stay down."
Billy stared at her, something unreadable flickering in his expression. His lips parted, a joke hovering on the edge, but it never came. Instead, he sighed, pulling out his phone. "Fine. But you owe me." He turned his attention back to Dr. Dowdy, studying the sickly pallor of his skin. Something flickered again, concern, buried beneath his usual gruffness. "So, this Dr. Chen thing, it's happening?" Latasha nodded.
"Dr. Henderson made the call. She's expediting treatment."
Billy huffed a laugh, shaking his head. "Guess that makes it official, huh? The Saving Dowdy project?" Latasha glanced his way.
"That is what you want, right?"
Billy pressed his lips together, exhaling slowly. "Yeah. But it's not just about him anymore. It's about all of them." Latasha let out a quiet breath.
"We've been on it. Now it's moving faster."
Billy muttered something under his breath, then reached for his phone again. "All right. I'll be back soon." Try not to let him die before then. Latasha let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Billy was frustrating, blunt, but when it mattered, he was there. And in the fight ahead, that was enough. After forcing down the broth and Alka-Seltzer, his stomach churned, but the worst of the nausea settled. His limbs felt heavy, his body wrung out like an empty sponge. He sank into the passenger seat with a slow, deliberate breath, his fingers twitching against his knee, fighting the aftershocks of withdrawal. Latasha pulled into traffic, her fingers tight around the wheel, jaw clenched with quiet focus.
Billy's really in this, you know? Dr. Dowdy muttered, his voice hoarse but carrying that familiar sharpness. Latasha scoffed, shifting gears.
He better be. This whole mess started with him.
Dr. Dowdy exhaled, head pressed against the cool glass of the window.
You think he expected all this? The clinic, the late-night calls, the babysitting?
Latasha let out a short laugh, dry but genuine.
Expected? No. But you saw how he cleaned the apartment. Ordered food. Left money without making a big deal out of it.
Dr. Dowdy hummed in agreement. Silence stretched between them, comfortable but weighted.
Parking's a nightmare down here.
Latasha grumbled as she scanned the crowded streets. A sharp turn, a sudden break, nothing.
You sure Billy didn't open a clinic with a parking garage?
Dr. Dowdy teased, voice still rough but lighter now. Latasha shot him a look.
Maybe that's what we should ask for next.
Another round through the streets. Still nothing. Latasha sighed, fingers drumming against the steering wheel.
You know, Dr. Dowdy started, eyes following the blur of city lights. Billy's got money. He could have picked someone else for this job. Latasha's grip tightened.
He could have. But he didn't.
Dr. Dowdy turned, studying her profile, the exhaustion, the steel beneath it. He nodded, slowly. That says something. Latasha didn't answer. She spotted a space, too small. The search continued. The conversation faded into quiet as the city swallowed them, both locked in thought as they navigated the maze of traffic and their own tangled emotions. The hum of the car's engine filled the silence. Streetlights blurred past. Dr. Dowdy shifted, the worn photograph still tucked into his palm like a lifeline. Then, the car jerked to a stop. The world outside slowed. Latasha inhaled sharply, gripping the wheel before finally exhaling. They had arrived. Inside, the sterile smell of antiseptic hung in the air. Dr. Chin pressed her fingers lightly against Dr. Dowdy's wrist, her expression unreadable as she counted his pulse. Her gaze flicked to his face, pale, exhausted, but alert. She noted the tremor in his hands, the tension in his jaw. The battle was far from over, but he was fighting.
You're stabilizing.
She murmured.
But withdrawal is unpredictable. You should be monitored inpatient.
Dr. Dowdy shook his head before she could even finish. Not an option.
Dr. Chin sighed, but didn't argue.
Then we do this carefully. Medications to ease the symptoms. Nutritional support. You need hydration and scheduled check-ins. Dr. Henderson will handle the 4 antibiotics.
Dr. Dowdy nodded. He knew the drill, but frustration lingered in his eyes. In the clinic? Dr. Chin's brow lifted.
Your focus should be your recovery. The clinic can't run if you collapse.
Dr. Dowdy exhaled sharply, but didn't argue. He knew she was right. Then, after a pause, Dr. Chin's gaze shifted to Latasha.
You've been managing a lot.
She said, voice measured, watching Latasha carefully.
I need a word.
Latasha followed her into the hall, the muted hum of hospital life pressing against the silence.
I can see your commitment.
Dr. Chin said, arms crossed, tone firm but not unkind.
You've kept him alive. And Freddy. That takes skill. But if you want to be the best nurse you can be, you need more experience.
Latasha's breath caught, but she stayed quiet.
I want you working here.
Dr. Chin continued.
1 day a week. The hospital. It'll sharpen your skills, make you stronger. You need it.
Latasha hesitated, the weight of exhaustion pressing against her ribs.
I have the clinic.
She managed. Dr. Chin's eyes softened, but she didn't waver.
And you have a future beyond it.
The words settled like an anchor in Latasha's chest. She could refuse. She could keep holding everything together like always. But this wasn't just about survival. It was about becoming. She exhaled, slowly.
I'll think about it.
Dr. Chin nodded, a knowing look in her eyes.
Good. Don't wait too long.
The car hummed beneath them as they drove back to the apartment, the lull of the city threading through the spaces between streetlights. Latasha tightened her grip on the wheel, eyes flicking between traffic and the knot forming in her chest. She exhaled, steadying her voice.
Dr. Dowdy, Dr. Chin asked me to work for her 1 day a week. Would that work for you if I told her I'd do it?
Dr. Dowdy didn't respond immediately, so she kept going, words tumbling out with quiet urgency.
I mean, you come first, you know that. But...
Latasha, stop!
His voice wasn't sharp, but it was firm enough to cut her off. She glanced over, catching the tired resolve in his expression. Let's talk about what will work for you, Dr. Dowdy continued, voice rough but steady. Right now, you're only allowed to nurse because you're working under my license. You know you need to do what it takes to get your own license back, right? Latasha swallowed, her fingers flexing on the steering wheel. She knew. Of course, she knew. But hearing him say it like that, like this wasn't just about keeping him afloat, but about her survival, too, made something tighten in her chest. Silence stretched between them as she weaved through traffic, both of them locked in thought. Then, just as she spotted an open parking space, Dr. Dowdy muttered, I swear, this parking situation might kill me before withdrawal does. Latasha huffed a laugh, shaking her head.
You really want to walk home instead?
Dr. Dowdy smirked, but as they stepped out of the car, he shifted, too quickly. The world tilted. Latasha reacted instantly.
Whoa.
She caught him, gripping his arm, steadying his weight.
You're all right?
She murmured, adjusting her stance. Dr. Dowdy exhaled, dragging a hand over his face. Yeah. Then, the apartment door swung open, Freddy grinning like he'd been waiting for them all day.
Well, finally. I was about to send a search party.
Latasha sighed, bracing herself for the inevitable distraction. Dr. Dowdy shifted on the couch, rubbing his temples, the weight of exhaustion pressing down on him. The moment stretched, too quiet, too unsettled. Then, 3 sharp raps at the door, like a hammer to the skull. Dr. Dowdy groaned into his pillow. Latasha rolled her eyes before dragging herself to the door. She cracked it open just enough to see the familiar bundle of coats, the wiry frame of Miss Geraldine, looking far too smug for someone uninvited.
I knowed it,
She declared, pushing past Latasha like she owned the place.
Knowed this would happen. Doctor of bums, laid up in drunkard's withdrawal.
She clucked her tongue.
Pitiful.
Latasha blinked.
Miss Geraldine, please.
Geraldine ignored her entirely, turning sharp eyes to Dr. Dowdy, assessing him with all the scrutiny of a seasoned judge.
You need good whiskey.
She announced.
Not that garbage you dumped. That was a crime against nature.
Her gaze flicked toward Latasha accusingly.
And you let it happen.
Latasha pinched the bridge of her nose.
Miss Geraldine, we're not reviving him with whiskey. Why not?
Geraldine barked.
Kept me alive.
She threw her arms up.
Whiskey. Biscuits. Spit.
Freddy snorted weakly from his spot. Honestly, she makes a strong case. Latasha whirled to glare at him.
Not helping.
Meanwhile, Geraldine had already begun her assessment of the apartment.
This place got too many walls. Not enough whiskey. And where's the chicken?
She sniffed dramatically.
I knowed I should have brought my own.
Latasha sighed, crossing her arms.
Miss Geraldine, it's time to go.
Geraldine waved her off.
Ain't going till I get proof you're treating this man right. And I will check your cabinets.
Latasha had had enough.
All right. That's it.
In one swift motion, she spun Geraldine toward the door, guiding her out with gentle but firm insistence. Geraldine squawked indignantly, her coats rustling like feathers.
I knowed this was coming. Y'all scared of the truth.
Latasha pressed the door open, nodding solemnly.
Absolutely terrified.
Geraldine turned to make one last dramatic declaration, but Latasha beat her to it, closing the door with finality. Silence. Then Freddy snickered. That was graceful. Latasha sighed, leaning against the door.
She knowed I was going to do it.
Latasha finally managed to make it to her own apartment, the quiet pressed in, thick and suffocating. The weight of the day settled over her, exhaustion pooling in her limbs like lead. The apartment door creaked open, every movement requiring more effort than it should. She barely had the strength to kick off her shoes before collapsing onto the couch, wilted, spent. Brenda, perched at the kitchen counter, watched her with narrowed eyes.
Well, look who remembers where she lives.
Latasha groaned, throwing an arm over her face.
Brenda, just, not now.
Brenda snorted, arms crossed tight.
You always say that. But guess what? You live here.
Latasha sighed, shifting just enough to meet Brenda's gaze.
I know.
Brenda pressed her lips into a thin line, waiting. Latasha exhaled.
I'm going to be working at the hospital 1 day a week.
Brenda blinked, skepticism creeping in.
Wait, what?
Latasha sat up, rubbing her temples.
Dr. Chin offered me the chance. And I'm going to renew my nursing license.
Brenda's expression lifted, the irritation in her face shifting into something unreadable.
So, what? You're finally making time for yourself?
Latasha managed a small smile before sinking deeper into the couch, exhaustion wrapping around her like a second skin. The world blurred for a moment, her body too heavy to fight it. Somewhere between the quiet of her apartment and the chaos waiting beyond it, time slipped away. Morning crept in, dragging the weight of reality with it. Dr. Dowdy woke up in pain, his body craving a drink so desperately that he felt he could kill for one. The house was empty, devoid of any alcohol. Latasha arrived and handed him a few pills. He gripped the frayed edges of an old photograph, his hands trembling as he traced his fingers over his son's face, his family frozen in time. His breath caught. A sudden wave of pain crashed over him, not just from withdrawal but from the memories he'd spent years trying to drown in alcohol. Latasha watched him carefully, her frustration simmering beneath the surface.
You hold on to that picture like it's the only thing you've got left.
She said, voice low but firm.
But what good is it if you don't fight for the people in it?
Dr. Dowdy swallowed hard, his throat dry, his body aching. His voice raw, strained. I don't deserve them, he whispered. His chest tightened. I ran. I drank. I let it all slip away. Latasha crossed her arms, shaking her head.
And now what? You just sit here, suffering, wishing things were different. You have people fighting for you, but you have to fight too, Doctor.
Dr. Dowdy shut his eyes for a moment, gripping the photograph tighter. Then, barely audible, I don't know if I can. Larry is 18 now, Gina 14. He pressed his fist against his temple, as if trying to force the memories away. I haven't seen them in 7 years. Latasha looked at him, her voice filled with frustration.
So, now that you've pulled me from my management job at McDonald's, cost Billy who knows how much money starting the homeless clinic, given hope to countless homeless people, and given hope to Freddy, you're just going to throw all that away and think only of your selfish self? Is that what I'm hearing?
Dr. Dowdy's voice rose in anguish, raspy and strained.
You don't know what it's like. You can't know what it's like. I hurt, Latasha. I hurt inside out.
Latasha's tone hardened.
Get over yourself, Dr. Dowdy. For once in the last 7 years, think of someone besides yourself. That's why you haven't seen your family. Can't you see that?
Dr. Dowdy started crying, and Latasha sat beside him, letting him rest his shaking head on her shoulder.
I know, Doctor, she murmured. You're not alone.
The battle isn't over. Dr. Dowdy's journey is far from finished, and those around him refuse to let him fall again. Where will his story go next? Tell us what you think in the comments. Hit like and subscribe to help us share more stories of resilience, because redemption is never simple, and some fights are just beginning.